So we've got, as of the day I'm recording this, about 4 days left to the current in-U metagame before August tier shifts hit, and as a result, we're not really going to have the time to get one more real VR update done. It would also be kind of pointless because the metagame would be changing immediately. So what I'm going to do instead, more casual way of covering a VR update of sorts at the very end of this metagame. If you've been enjoying the content lately, make sure that you are subscribed if you're not already subscribed. And if you are subscribed, make sure you click that bell. Join us a member if you can. Leave a like, leave a comment. Any of that good stuff that helps the channel grow. Now, I think the most important thing to always talk about with these VR updates, two things. One, this is just my opinion. This is not reflective of everyone else in the VR Council, or the Tiering Council, or, of course, other relevant players. So, this is my view on the meta. There are other views. And then the second most important thing is, let's talk about S-Rank. I've actually made a post regarding S-Rank recently, although I have had my opinion change ever so slightly just through, having more thoughts about it. I'm mostly just going to cover the big shifts that I went through, by the way, so don't worry about me going over literally why, like, say, Crabominable is B rank. I don't care about that. And yeah, S rank. I made my S rank Jolteon, Mesprit, Sandaconda, Scyther, alphabetical order, of course. And the new ones here are Mesprit and Jolteon. And why do I believe this to be reflective of S rank? In large part, I just think these are the best Pokemon in the tier, whether it's from a threat level or like a general, as we say, splash ability level. How easy is it to put a Pokemon on a team? Sandaconda, of course, is perceived as being the best Pokemon in the meta because there's really not any team you can't put it on, other than like Hyper Offense. That's the one team archetype where you're not really ever going to see Sandaconda on, but any other type is pretty fair game. Even Stall, you could justify a Sandaconda because it's very, very durable with Shed Skin Rest, gives you a status absorber as a result. If you want, you could run it as Coil, maybe pair up Blissey with it instead. It's the best, I was gonna say it's the best Volt Switch deterrent, but I feel like Jolteon might actually be that. But it is the best ground type in the tier by like 50 country miles. And overall, it's just a very, very consistent Pokemon on a game-by-game basis by soft checking basically every physical attacker the metagame has. And when we talk about physical attackers too, Scyther remains an S rank for me because many reasons. One, it's just really fast and strong, so, good revenge killer. Pivots really effectively, pretty versatile as well. The set you see most often has Defog on it, but, you've got, like, U-Turn, Aerial Ace, and then, you're picking the litter for moves. You could have Sword Stance, so that Scyther retains that wall-breaking or even sweeping power. You've got Close Combat, which can pick off, anything that Terra steals, say like an Appleton or an Electros, maybe even a Mesprit if it wants to Terra steal. You got Thief if you want to just snatch a Rotom's soul. And amount of options, and beyond to that kind of set, you got the dedicated Sword Stand Sweepers with Trailblaze. You could run Choice Scarf on Scyther if you've got support from a Hatram. You could even do, with Hatram support, a Violite Scyther with SD, and that makes it a lot harder to revenge kill with Pokemon like, say, Scarf Rotom. But why did I move Jolteon and Mesprit up? Well, Jolteon, y'all, I literally just made a video about that, so I'm not going to talk about it too much. But the quick TLDR is, Calm Mind Jolteon is stupidly effective. The Mon is the fastest Mon in the tier, disregarding Scarfers. So it's a great revenge killer, great pivot, also, by proxy the speed, great late game sweeper, because it's very hard to revenge kill this Mon. And it's got stab bolt beam coverage once it turns into an ice type. So all of these things combine to just make it an incredibly effective Pokemon. On the other hand, with Mesprit, it's less that any one set for Mesprit is super duper effective, but it has like 5 or 6 great sets. You've got, I'm going to count them as I go, Choice Scarf, Choice Specs, Nasty Plot, Stealth Rock Utility. And when I say Nasty Plot, I can like split Nasty Plot up into like Nasty Plot with 3 attacks or like Nasty Plot Substitute. You've got the Calm Mind sets that you can run on maybe Terrain offense with Mystical Power draining his stored power. All of these are good sets, varying in how good they are. They're all like, you're ranking them on maybe as like a set viability ranking. These are all like S- maybe, A+. They get like up, maybe even some of them are considered S, like Specs and Nasty Plot, I think are both pretty redonkulous. I'm never using that word again, but that's what we're talking about when we talk about Mesprit. A mon that can do so many different things at such a high level of effectiveness that, yeah, I think you gotta talk about it as one of the best mons in tier worthy of this S rank. And in S-, which is, you know, tick below the truly elite, but they're still doing enough to, in my view, separate them from A+. The Dunsparce, he still be coiling. I mentioned how good this mon is in the past, where coil sets are very, very effective at running through teams with, you know, very minimal support needed. You've got Body Slam even to kind of set things up for yourself, and Terra Fairy, meaning, hey, you run into any other coiler, they ain't phasing you out. And in Hisuian Sneasel, I mean, the spawn, ever since it dropped, y'all have seen me use it to incredible success. Whether it was with the Terra Grass Trailblaze set, that I was using a ton early on, to nowadays you've got, like, Choice Band, Choice Scarf, you've even got, like, Toxic Spike's 3 attacks as a set that gets a little use. So, you know, it's like any other Hisuian Sneasel set, it's still really fast, but now you're a bit more utility-focused. You're just trying to, you know, throw off attacks. It's sort of like a Defog Scyther on those Defog 3 attack sets. You kind of do just a little bit of everything. You still get to hold in a Violite as well, so your bulk's a little bit better than maybe otherwise expected. I've even seen, like, Sword Stance Terra Blast Ground to get a little bit of use, which is a cool, lure set. You already beat the poison types pretty effectively, but being able to Terra into a ground type also has its benefits for those matchups, in case maybe they've got some sort of counter tech, you know, Terra of their own. So maybe you're worried about a Quillfish turning into, like, I don't know, a Psychic type and somehow beating you down. I'd have to give a little more thought on a specific example, but you get the idea. It's like, it really maximizes that matchup for you, and also, being a fast ground type, whew, that's really exciting. Now we get to A+, and this is where I'm going to start not being as dead set on talking about every single Pokemon, instead the mons that are like moving into this rank. So like Rotom, I dropped from S- to A+. The big reason is, like in the Jolteon video, what I talked about, with the tier getting a lot faster. That has hurt Rotom because its non-choice Scarf sets just aren't as consistent as they used to be, as more Pokemon are getting a lot of use that, you know, just threaten those variants of Rotom. Scarf remains an incredible set, and I mean, I was still tempted to keep Rotom in S- for that set, but I do think that with Nasty Plot kind of falling off, those utility sets never really catching on past, like, the first couple months of Inu. I probably wrote them more closely with the A+ mons at this point. Because it's not even like Scarf has a super strong hold as the best choice Scarf user in the tier. I mean, Mesprit is up here. Hisuian Sneasel is up here. Even in its own sub-rank, you've got Bruxish, which is a low-key, pretty damn good Scarf user at the moment. I think enough stuff has kind of come to fruition, and of course the big one being Jolteon competition, to where Rotom's a little bit lower than it used to be. Still a great Pokemon, just not as great as it once was. And now what did I move up to A+? Oh, we got Big Apple. I was shocked this one didn't rise even higher in the last VR update. You're talking about switch-ins to Water-type moves, Appleton's the best of them. And although every Water-type still has ways around it, having that Mon that can still say, no, you don't get to use your strongest, most powerful attack is very, very helpful. In addition to that, though, look at the sets getting use right now. In particular, it's those offensive variants. Specs and Eject Pack Appleton both are simply incredible sets. If we look at NU, there's not much that switches into Appleton's attacks, and although its coverage is terribly limited, well, we don't have Steel type, so who gives a shit? It doesn't matter that we don't have great mons. Or it matters a lot that we don't have mons that can resist its stabs. For Appleton, it doesn't matter that you have no coverage beyond your stab attacks. You don't need it. Like, what's what you get anyway? A lot of time, it's just going to be these blanket special walls, like Articuno, or an Assault Vest Electros. Maybe just a specially defensive normal type, like Blissey or Appleton. Not Appleton. Ursaring, or Coil to Dunsparce. And that's where the Eject Pack sets really have been coming into play lately, because you just pivot on those, you keep up the momentum for your team, and you keep bringing in checks like Hisuian Sneasel and Toxicroak to deal with them. And you can just recycle back up that pack later, and just do it all over again. And in Bruxish, I moved back up to A+, because for some reason, my co-voters decided, hey, Bruxish should actually drop to A on last update. And I looked at that and I said, no. So I'm going to note that I believe it should be rising back up. I don't think that's a hot take at all. Bruxish is simply put... Well, how do I simply put that? Probably one of the most straightforward wall breakers in the tier. I mean, with water-resistant Pokemon being kind of at a premium ever since Vaporeon left, at least like sturdy ones, Bruxish can wave crash pretty freely in most games. If you're thinking about what checks to water types teams will usually have, I mean, you're only really worried about running into maybe a Toxicroak that's immune to water entirely, or like we've just mentioned with Appleton. And a lot of the time, it just ends up being that Bruxish forces very uncomfortable 50-50s. We could even bring in Cacturne into the mix. The main issue with these 50-50s is Terra Dark CB Crunch. Bruxish's stabs are pretty pivotable around, because they've got immunities, or really, really sturdy resistances. But when you throw in the possibility of Bruxish being the Terrastalizer on a team, it makes things a lot more complicated because you don't want to have to keep then trying to pivot around the crunch too. Dark types can still generally do it alright if you're not named Sableye, but it does add another level to Bruxish, and of course even a move like Ice Fang or Poison Fang could be thrown off. But to put it in perspective, I mean, Terra Dark Crunch, with very minimal chip needed, if any at all, is two-shotting Cacturne. So, I mean, how good of a check is it really? And then Pokemon like Umbreon have fallen off. I just mentioned it, Sableye doesn't even resist Crunch. Appleton can't conveniently use Terra in that kind of matchup, because it wants to be a Steel type, or maybe a Poison type in certain team structures. So it's usually a pretty free move to spam repeatedly. Anyhow, down to A rank. Nothing actually changed here, other than Mons dropping out. Something I'll note, though, is maybe a Pokemon or two that I keep an eye on for rising. Or ones that I personally would just have closer to the cusp of A+, would be like Hisuian, Quill, and Magneton. I was talking with Eternally earlier, and we both kind of were remarking about how, yeah, Magneton lately has been picking up a good amount of use. Of course, if you're a frequent viewer, you know why. You've seen us get smashed. But it's so good with Analytic, man. Anything that actually resists your stab moves, other than Assault Vest, like the bulkiest of Assault Vest Eels, does not take your Thunderbolt very well. And even then, it's not like Eel's got good recovery. It's got Giga Drain, bro. Like, that's not great. And then if you're talking about, like, blanket special walls that can actually withstand your attacks, maybe like a Violite Ursaring can avoid a two-shot, or Blissey. You just get Volt Switched on, you still take a million from it, except Blissey. Blissey, actually, everything bounces off of it, but Blissey's just getting Volted on. And, okay, congrats, you keep throwing Blissey out, I'm gonna keep Volt Switching on you, eventually you will be two-shot. It's just a very uncomfortable sequence. Now that we're at A-, and all that happened here was we dropped regular Quillfish into A-. Elias Sai actually made a post about it in the thread, but my perspective on it is, I think regular Quillfish kind of struggles right now because the fighting types, you're not the most comfortable of an answer to. Like, Metacham obviously packs you up. Hisui and Sneasel, you gotta be a little careful with. If you're not Thunder Wave, you oftentimes just lose. But the biggest is, of course, having Hisui and Quillfish as competition. You can't run both Quillfish on one team. That's kind of the issue with Paldean and Tauros right now, too. Depending on how good you think Cantonian is, you can't run both on the same team, and that's why Paldean did drop originally. But the same goes for regular Quillfish versus Hisuian. The Hisuian variant's viewed as being a good bit better, so there's an opportunity cost to you running the normal one. And also, just think about it as a water-type check. What are our water types? Bruxish and Clawitzer. Would you like to tell the class how this mon is reliably checking them? It's very prediction reliant, which is to say that it's possible still, at least with Bruxish, not really Clawitzer. You can still check Bruxish if you always get the Wave Crash play right. But if you ever want to get Scyfangs right, you're either A, not switching Coefficient, or B, having to burn your Terra. And then, voila, if your Terra means that you take Scyfangs, you no longer take that Wave Crash. Bruxish will be coming back, and she is angry. And then, I mean, again, we talk about like spikers in the meta. We're not at a loss for spikes users. You got Cacturn, you got Hisuian Quill, you got Frostlass. There's a lot of really good ones, so that niche isn't very profound compared to previous metagames either. B+, I managed to change nothing at all. Though, again, I'll mention just like with A, Pokemon that could be on the cusp of rising up. Glaceon is one that I'm pretty high on. Wow, okay, so my bad for going quiet there. I was trying to remember in the alphabet if Glaceon should be after Hatchram. Oh god, that's embarrassing. But Glaceon's a one that I could see rising up for similar reasons to Appleton, where it's like, okay, it has negative coverage, but who cares? What's switching into Ice Beam, right? And I would even say Vivillon could be a candidate for rising into A-. I had seen AFO in the NU Discord talking about how he believes Oricorio could actually rise to RU. He thinks it's like a top 10 Pokemon in the tier. Please take Oricorio. God, I'm tired of it. But if Oricorio were to rise out of NU, I mean, look, there's a shot Vivillon becomes the next best Quiver Dance user. And A. Vivillon already as is pretty darn strong. Very easy Pokemon to use. You just, you know, again, you sleep stuff, you quiver up, and you just try to Hurricane through teams. You have Terra Ground to potentially deny the revenge killing efforts of, say, a Rotom, for example. Just a very, very consistent option. I mean, I'm frankly tempted to say move it up right now, but I'm going to avoid it because we've already started the video. Now here, we're going to see a big drop that had happened. Drifblim, I dropped it out of A- all the way down to B, and why is that? I think Drifblim sucks. It's still a defogger, and it's not like it's the most unusable Pokemon ever. The defensive properties of it are still pretty useful. Like, you check Hisuian Sneasel if it's not Terra Dark Night Slash, for example. You are a Toxicroak check too, because Croak doesn't really have great moves to hit you with. So it's going to be having to fish for a Gunk Shot poison. If it doesn't get lucky, or if it keeps missing, that can be quite detrimental to Toxicroak. But as of late, I've frankly just preferred Drifblim. Not Drifblim, Braviary to Drifblim. If I want that flying type defogger that's kind of bulky, Braviary just ends up being a little better. It's not as big of a momentum sink because you've got U-turn, but also Braviary's just kind of strong. I mean, not only is Braviary kind of strong, but it's also very nice with Defiant. So the way I've played, or built, I should say, NU lately, is when I'm looking at whether I want hazard control or not, there's two questions I ask myself. One, can I fit enough boots users on my team to where it doesn't matter? If I can do that, then, well, okay, we're kind of just golden. Because then I don't have to worry about defogging ever, and I can just avoid the defog slot entirely. But if I decide I want a defogger, why do I go Braviary if I'm building a Spikes-focused team? Well, Braviary's Defiant means that if the opponent decides they want to defog, I've always got my say in the game too. I can come out and be like, alright, sir, I switching to the Brave Bird now. Because NU, I've talked about it before, there's not a lot of great flying resists. It could be very hard to build a team with one anyway. That's why I think Vivillon is so good too, by the way. Not only can you kind of cheese the few ones that there are, but like I just said, there's not many. So, pretty good for that angle. But yeah, it's a lot of it's just Drifblim's too passive and too susceptible to giving up momentum. And it's why I'm always going to be a little lower, I think, on Blissey compared to other people. Because, well, Blissey gives up momentum like no one's business. And I've just been low on Drifblim for a while. Drop it to PU, let them have fun. And yeah, down to B-, I dropped all of Cloth, Berserker, Persian Alola. Cloth I dropped because it's just... I don't know why it rose in the first place. And from my view, it never needed to rise, so hey, move it back down. I think the reason it rose was people were using it on stall. But as I've seen more stall lately, it doesn't even really use Cloth. Or doesn't need to. Anyhow, Berserker, down to B-, too. I think the thing with Berserker is this. While usage does not necessarily dictate how viable something is, at a point taken into account, Berserker does not get seen at all in NU, really. It's very, very niche. And I think keeping it in B is just a little misleading. It's never really been common at all. And with Wish being non-existent practically in this tier, ever since Vaporeon left, I feel like the best Berserker sets were always Assault Vest, where you run it with Vaporeon, and then you just have that nice little defensive core between the two of them. I don't really see much reason to use this mon now. I feel like even in B- it's kind of high, because it's more by just... Since it's the only fully evolved steel type available to us, it's kind of just done as a courtesy. Like, okay, well, surely you're not that bad. No, it is that bad. Yeah, I'm not a fan. I did Persian Alola I moved down because we just haven't seen it used to really any success. As a pivot, it's still pretty serviceable, but no knockoff means it's just so much less than it otherwise could. You know, you got like U-turn, foul play, status, and then taunt, and I mean, that's not bad at all, but it's just so much harder to force progress like you could in Persian Alola's peak during the Generation 8 NU metas, where the Mon was not only soft-checking a ton of physical attackers, but it was also every time it got in freely, it's like, alright, something's losing an item. And if you go to your Silvally, alright, you're getting foul played or T-waved or U-turned on, and it was just so much better back then. And I'll C-rank. Now what I did here, I condensed C-rank into one sub-rank because I've always been of the opinion, I don't care if something is C+ or C. They mean the same thing for all intents and purposes, right? It's very niche. C+, okay, congrats, you're slightly less niche, but I've never viewed it as particularly useful as a distinction, so here's the C stuff. Literally the only change in terms of mons dropping down was Sliggoo, Hisui. I'm here to tell you all right now, Joey and I managed to gaslight the entire NU community into thinking this mon was better than it was. Good work, us. The issue for Sliggoo has just been, again, it kind of goes back to Berserker, where it really has not seen usage. I mean, you want to look at NUPL, for example. Something like Hisui and Sneasel, which was released at the same time as Hisui and Sliggoo, was, I believe, at the end of it, a top 10 Pokemon in use. The mon's incredible. Sliggoo got one use. I believe that's what Phantom Mystics told me. One use. Yeah, that's yeah. And this one was B rank, so I think dropping it pretty far makes sense. It's got issues beyond just not being used, though. I mean, you want to look at what it does set-wise. If you're talking about bulky setup set, you gotta justify it over Dunsparce. You gotta justify it over Electros. You gotta justify it even over Mesprit. That's really hard to do. And then if you want to talk about, you know, special attacker set, which is what I used in my first video with it, okay, well that set's really fun, but how practical is it actually? I think Sliggoo still offers some really cool things. In particular, being a very stout answer to Vivillon is quite good. But how far does that really carry you? I don't know. And yeah, I think it's good enough to stay ranked, but I wouldn't go much further than just keeping it ranked. And then, quick little blitz round on these ones at the bottom that I decided to unrank. Dockspun, again, Wish Passing, we don't really see happen at all. I also just noticed something I have to come back to. Because I noticed I didn't actually go... You might have noticed a Pokemon isn't even on the VR up here. I'm gonna stealth edit it real quick. Not stealth edit it, but ah, darn, I already went past it. Yeah, we'll talk about why Umbreon's all the way down here. But, quick Pokemon unranked. Dockspun, Wish Pass is pretty dead, and as a result, I don't know, why would I rank Dockspun? We have not seen this mon used since like, the first month it was here, it's just bad. Both Dog Trios, I don't think either's really worth running. It's for Hazard's lead on HO for each of them, but I view Frostlass and Bombardier as significantly better options, because they have Taunt. And both could still self-KO. Bombardier's got Memento. I mean, Frostlass doesn't have self-KO, but has Debond, which is similarly quite useful. Swalot. My thing with Swalot is... Always the purpose of it, in my view, was that it counter-teamed Drifblim. And since I'm really low on Drifblim as a Pokemon, I see no reason to keep Swalot ranked, especially as high as it was. It's like B-. I don't think that's indicative of the current meta. I'm sure it's still a usable Pokemon, but there are a lot of Pokemon on this list, or in the game, that are usable, but I still wouldn't rank as being particularly viable, because it's... You don't want to stretch the viability out to such lengths, I find. Tinkatuff I unranked as well, because it's another matter of, like, I could use it, but do I really think it's that worth it? It always sees a little bit of use, and frankly, Tinkatuff's someone I could have kept ranked. Because if you want to get real specific with it, it actually is a good Appleton check. It's one of the few that can wall Draco Meteor entirely and then not take much from the grass moves either. I just don't find that to be a particularly inspiring niche for myself, but maybe you do. Whiskash I've always thought was terrible. Dragon Dance is too weak. Hazard sets I just don't find worth running. Sandaconda's better. Frostlass is better. The Quillfish are better. Cactune's better. Like, nothing it does makes me content. And then Weirdeer. I'm here to let y'all know right now this is not a real Pokemon. It does some things okay. Like, bulky setup sets are fine. But, again, it's a matter of that competition. Why am I using Weirdeer over the Dunsparce? Why am I using it over Electros? Why am I using it over Mesprit? And I don't think that it's got enough justification for that. And now because I did catch it, if you made it to this point, shoutouts, good, make sure to comment down below. Good work, Rabia. Umbreon. This is down from A-. I think Umbreon is a B+ Pokemon. And the reason for that's simple. Wish teams are dead. The meta is generally pretty favoring to offense or like faster balance. And as a result, Umbreon just doesn't have that luxury of sitting around forever, wish passing. And just like Blissey, it's quite passive too, so I don't really feel like it's worth running because it's so easy to take advantage of. If we look at the not the reservation there, but just look at Pokemon. If you're trying to switch into these special attackers, obviously pivoted on, pivoted on, pivoted on. Technically pivoted on with Draco. Pivoted on. Pivoted on. Like, the repetitive theme is you just get Volt Switched or U-turned on. But also, if you want to talk about trying to 1v1 things, what's the Pokemon type you're probably going to associate it with beating the most? Probably Psychic types, because it's a dark. What if my Mesprit becomes a Fairy type out of nowhere? What now, Umbreon? What if my Medicham does the same, or just CCs you on the Switch? What are we doing now? And even Umbreon's most common Terra type is Poison. Okay, congrats. Now I hit you with the other stab move for more damage. It's not very consistent right now, and I struggle to say that it's even the best evolution in the tier. I think Glaceon is probably better for all intents and purposes. And as a blanket special wall, I mean, we have Blissey now. I think Blissey is at least a little bit more consistent. So yeah, there's probably my hottest take. Umbreon out of the A ranks entirely. And that's going to be it for me for this video, guys. Hope y'all enjoy. Tomorrow, we'll probably have a PS Live for y'all. That's really all I can say now. Hope you have a great day, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.